So here's your daily update from the war in Israel. There's a lot to cover, a lot to talk about. Let's get started right away. So number one, the IDF has now made the humanitarian corridor that allows civilians to move from North Gaza, which is the war zone, to South Gaza, which is not a war zone, a daily thing. They've done it for the past 3 days, a few hours every day. They let civilians move on that road and not be harmed whatsoever. Now, who is going to harm these civilians? It's not the IDF, actually. The first day that they've attempted this humanitarian corridor, the Hamas was actually bombing, mortar shelling, and shooting its own civilians that tried to move southbound to just prevent them from leaving. So what happened is that for the past 2 days, the IDF is literally securing with tanks and soldiers the road, allowing civilians to move south, protecting them from Hamas. Now, yesterday we had drone footage. It was hard to see, but today we actually have live footage, and there's little tanks, IDF soldiers securing these civilians. So don't give them this baloney about genocidal rampage campaign by the Israeli Defense Forces. They're actually securing the people that are wanted to leave North Gaza from Hamas attacks. So let's not spread propaganda, at least on this channel. Now, the IDF also shared a video where they prove that Hamas is using hospitals, schools, and playgrounds as rocket launchers, as weapons depots, as various military installations inside civilian and kids' facilities. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous, not to mention a complete war crime. Now, the IDF also released footage of tunnel explosions, which means they get good intel, which means they're finding tunnels and actually taking them out. Now, there's also footage they've released today, which is absolutely mind-blowing, of some sort of a technological solution that allows them to fight inside the tunnels. And in the footage, you'll see 2 Hamas terrorists taking out inside their own tunnel by surprise. Now, I don't have any details about how this happened or how this works on the technology, but it's absolutely mind-blowing. There's a lot of surprises the IDF prepared for the Hamas terrorists dug inside their tunnels. Now, the other thing is that Netanyahu went on TV yesterday and he spoke to the US media saying, look, the IDF will remain responsible over Gaza security-wise, preventing it from attacking Israel indefinitely. And that's the way they've said it from the beginning. They're going to collapse the rule of Hamas. They're going to de-arm, demilitarize Gaza, and maintain responsibility for it not attacking Israel. Now, Israel does not intend, by Netanyahu's own words, to govern Gaza whatsoever. They don't want to deal with the everyday governance like sewage and schools and transportation. It's going to be self-governed or governed by some sort of other force that we don't know yet. But it also will have the Israelis looking inwards and saying, hey, as long as you keep to yourself, as long as you don't try to go at us, we're going to stay out. But the minute we're going to find some weapons or terrorist activity inside, we're going to go in and take care of it. Now, Israel isn't going to police Gaza. They will have their own police, much like they have on the West Bank, but they will be responsible for not letting them grow into this terrorist state that they've grown into. That's not ever going to happen again, and Israelis will not accept it. Now, a lot of people twisted this into saying, well, Netanyahu means they're going to occupy Gaza again indefinitely. That's not what he said. He didn't say that. He said that Israel will have the liberty to come in and out to clear out terrorists. They will not be governing the daily operations. They will not be policing it. It will be absolutely self-governed. Now, another important thing here to talk about. The IDF is also closing in on Shifa Hospital. Now, the Shifa Hospital is the main headquarters of Hamas. Everybody knows this. It's a known thing. All their tunnels are there. The headquarters are there. And they have no issues with the IDF knowing it because they think the IDF is not going to bomb a hospital. Now, the IDF has already shown they're not going to bomb the hospital, so the Hamas wins, right? Not exactly. So what the IDF is doing right now, they're literally encircling that hospital, the Shifa hospital, and they're going to smoke them out slowly but surely. First of all, they're going to encircle it. Then they're going to let civilians slowly move out. And then they're going to go in and cleanse this hornet's nest from the inside out. Obviously, it will be a lot simpler to bomb it, but the IDF is working based on international law. And even though they can technically bomb that hospital, because if it's used for military installations, they won't do it. Obviously, because of the PR damage it's going to cause, they're not going to take this liability. Now, the crazy part about it is that IDF has already taken control over multiple western neighborhoods in Gaza City. So it's not already just on the outskirts of the city. It's taking over actual neighborhoods. The West Gaza City is already pretty much under IDF control. Their progress is absolutely insane if you think about it. They're fighting in Gaza, which is the most complex urban warfare we've seen ever, because we're talking about not just urban warfare, tunnels, we're talking about 240 hostages and 2 million of hostile population, and they're getting it done absolutely insane, way faster than anybody anticipated, including Hamas, including the rest of the world. Not even sure the IDF knew how fast they're going to get it done. Right now, the IDF is allowing food trucks to come into Gaza on a daily basis. So far, we had 500 food trucks enter into Gaza with food for about 2 weeks. And also, Israel is actually pumping water, not at full capacity, but they are pumping water into Gaza, which allows Gazans to have water and food mainly on the south. They want to push people south so they can clear the battlefield. And as we enter the second month of this war, it's important to break down where this whole thing started, where we are right now, and what's the future. So obviously this started with a colossal flop and a colossal failure by the IDF, which led to a massacre of its civilians. Just to show you what happens to the Israelis when they lower their guard. Now, it turned into absolute mayhem by the IDF, which turned it around 180. It went from 2006 IDF, which failed in Lebanon, to 1967 IDF, which took over the entire neighborhood in 6 days. Total destruction of Hamas is now imminent and inevitable. They will close the loop and they'll close in on North Gaza. And this is just the first move out of 3, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, the military excellence of IDF is now a given. I think people were wondering how good the operations will be, how good the IDF as a classic conventional military will be, because they haven't fought a real war in decades. And I think that answered a lot of questions. I think they're really, really good. Now, there's a lot of calls to a ceasefire that's coming in from the Russians and the Iranians. I want you to understand that when these people are calling for a ceasefire, what actually they're saying is save Hamas, save Hamas. Don't let Israel destroy Hamas. Both the Russians and Iranians are in the same interest group in which they want to save Hamas for later. Now, whether they will be successful or not, I don't know. I think not. I think at this point, Israel is determined to at the very least, destroy Hamas. So I don't think Iranians and Russians will get what they want. Now, they will push the global narrative with Al Jazeera, which is functioning as the media arm of Hamas right now, to try and get Israel to stop. But I think at this point, Israel has suffered so much casualties, so much pain on the civilian side, they're not going to stop. Now, the global support for the Israeli campaign is fading away. There's no doubt about that. And it also is fading away in the United States. But the main concern for the Israelis is there are certain small cracks that are starting to form with the relationship with the US over this specific topic. Now, the rest of the world basically either divided into we are against it or we're neutral, right? But the United States have been in Israel's corner from day one. And they haven't left that corner. But now we're seeing little cracks forming on the duration and the, occurrence of these humanitarian breaks. The United States wants more humanitarian breaks to basically allow people to move out and to allow the IDF to have more breathing room from a PR perspective. The IDF is saying, look, we're not going to give anything to them until we get our 240 hostages back. Now, there are disagreements between the US and Israel on this specific point, but make no mistakes about it. Israel and the US are firmly in the same corner. We just saw the United States send a very important message to Hezbollah in Iran, basically telling them, hey, if you step in, we're going to get involved. And the United States, very uncharacteristically, basically let everybody know, hey, we have a nuclear sub in that neighborhood, the Ohio-class Florida sub, which holds a serious punch, just to show the world they're in Israel's corner. So while there is cracks, there's certain disagreements on certain topics, the United States haven't faded with its support to Israel. That's the most important part. That's the strategic importance of the U.S. support to allow Israel to finish off Hamas. Now, I think Israel made a decision strategically not to escalate the northern border with Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah has become very brazen. They're shooting at civilians. They're shooting anti-tank missiles towards cars. They basically, in any normal situation, would have gotten a war. But I think Israel basically at this point is saying, hey, as long as it doesn't cross a certain border where they're actually cause a war situation up front, we're going to leave Hamas to basically go wild. They evacuated all the people from the border towns, and they're basically saying, well, we're going to get to you in a second. Let us finish Hamas first. And I think it's an important decision, and I think it's a smart decision to keep it a one front as much as you can operation, even though they're actively managing 3 fronts, Judea and Samaria, which is the West Bank, the northern front, which are kind of on low intensity, and then you have the high intensity main front, and I think they want to keep it this way. But I think what's next for Israel is once the North Gaza falls, and that basically means Gaza City, Shifa Hospital, they'll turn south, which is going to be a lot easier, and then they will have to come up with a political solution of how to go to day one post-war, what to do with Gaza, because Israel does not want to own Gaza, and the Gazans do not want to be owned by Israel. So there has to be a political solution. Now, since the campaign started on the 26th of October, the progress of the IDF was impressive. They did suffer 30 casualties, which is horrible. But again, given the amount of success they had, the amount of strategic success they had, 30 casualties versus 5 to 10,000 Hamas members dead, I think it's an absolute success. And although every life matters, obviously, that is a military success. Soldiers die, unfortunately, and it's horrible. But the IDF is well prepared. They planned well. They had a great softening campaign from the air, and I think it shows right now. So as far as the timeline, I don't think they're going to take Shifa Hospital tomorrow, not in the next week. Probably we're looking at least until the end of the year for Israel to complete the conquer of North Gaza. So, Shifa Hospital, complete a victory image where you have the Israeli flag over Shifa Hospital, probably end of December. Then you have the South, another couple of months, probably end of February. And then maybe if the Israelis with the US decide to go after Hezbollah, we're looking at March or April, because the Israelis do not want to leave next to somebody with so many capabilities, because there's a difference between capabilities. The Hezbollah is very capable of causing massive mayhem to Israel, massive infrastructure damage, but they have no intent because they want to save Lebanon. But Israel is saying right now, look, we had the same idea with Hamas. They had all these capabilities to hurt us, but we thought they don't have intent to start a war until they irrationally just decided one day to do so. So the capacity of the Israelis to live alongside Hezbollah in its current configuration on the border with Israel, it's a huge question. So if the war happens, it's probably we're looking at March or April. But obviously, nobody really knows exactly how much time they have. Now, if you want to watch an expert break down this whole story and actually talk about the urban warfare, the elements that the IDF is facing, I had a sit down with John Spencer, who literally wrote the book on urban warfare. I'm going to put the link to the video right here. A 1-hour conversation, fascinating. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel right here, I'll see you in the next video.